All right, my lovers, I'm making a video about the Poseidon company, the Poseidon Bikes company. I've made a few videos about them because those are the bikes that or the bike company I've chosen to purchase from. And consequently, I talked to Lewis and he gifted me a Poseidon Triton in exchange for making a video about it. And so I'm just, going to make as much content as I can about these bikes because I think like for the price of these bikes, especially for a modern bike, for a brand new bike, what you're getting is a budget bike. Now, I know some people will see, $800 bike, $900, like $1,000 bike and be like, well, that's not a budget bike. I can go get one off Craigslist. Or, get something cheaper. I don't really talk about used bikes because used bikes are not widespread. Whatever deal that you find on a used bike is what it is. There's no way I can compete with that. If you find a deal somewhere on Craigslist or you find some local place to buy a bike, that's your experience and that's not a universal experience that we can all share. But Poseidon is a website that you can go to, get a new bike, get a lifetime warranty on their frames. That's one thing I do want to add is that all their frames do come with a lifetime warranty. But let's just talk about the three different bikes that you might consider. Even though they do have a model, the Norton, which is a mountain bike, I'm looking at basically the three different types of gravelly bike all-road offerings and making a comparison so that you can kind of, if you were interested in buying one of their bikes, kind of how to make a decision on which one is the right one for you. And again, like I've said in other videos, there's no such thing as a perfect bike. It's really what are you going to use it for? Where do you live? What kind of climate do you have to ride in? And so we'll talk about just the specs of all three, why you would be interested, why someone would be interested in that version. And then, after that, kind of using it up to yourself to kind of make a decision on what you think would be the best one for you. So we'll start with the first one that I got. Personally, I got the X Ambition. I got it on sale for under $500, but then I ended up upgrading it with a through axle kit. Now, one thing I do like about the X is that it does have the upgrade option. So if you wanted to start with something that was not through axle, because maybe you don't need a through axle bike because you're not going off road, maybe you don't need something that's tubeless, but it gives you the path to upgrade. So if you're someone who has ridden on old school bikes in the past, like I was coming from that place with a quick release bike, you can get one that's quick release. Even the brand new one, the Generation 2, comes quick release. But if you wanted to upgrade it to a through axle, it can be done. So I would say this is the most versatile of all of them. I'd say the geometry is a little bit more relaxed compared to the Triton and maybe even the Redwood. If you were looking for something that was the most versatile of them, I think that would be it. The new ones come standard with a 40 millimeter tires. I fitted mine. I ended up putting in 42 millimeters. That's the maximum width that you can have without any issues. These come in a 1x10, 38 tooth up front, 11 to 48 cassette on the back. So if you're someone who lives in a hilly area and you're trying to climb, it's a really great option, especially for someone who lives in the Seattle area. There's a lot of hills. Again, if you live out here, also all weather riding, if you're riding in the winter. This is also a good bike if you wanted to put on a bike rack. I'm a big fan of bike racks. I just made a video about not riding with a backpack, which did surprisingly well for where I'm at as a YouTuber. So you can go ahead and watch that if you have any interest in kind of hearing my opinions on that. But this is the best bike, I would say, as far as an all-round commuter. It's also, if you wanted to use this for more of a sporty, like cyclocross, endurance riding, if you configure it the right way, you can configure it with a 2x. It can be used for that. I would say the sizes also, it comes between a small and an XXL. I'm always trying to usually get the biggest factory frames that I can get, so the XXL is something that I would ride. Like I said, holds for the bike rack. You like gravel, cyclocross, great for touring, commuting, adventuring, bikepacking. I would say maybe touring more than wilderness bikepacking, just because those 42 millimeter tires, you can make them tubeless compatible. The wheel set, you can get a 700C wheel set if you upgrade it. So I would say that I use it. The X is my kind of, if I were a daily rider, riding to work, riding around town, picking up groceries, going on long adventures, I definitely like that bike for those reasons. Again, like if that was your use case, I would go with that one. They also have the Redwood. That comes in 650B with 2.35 inch Kendra Cadre tires, max width of 2.6 inches at the 650B, and you can also configure those with 700C wheels, which we have. I got one for my partner, so she has a 700C wheel set. So you could put really huge tires, 700C tires in there. You could probably get well over 50 millimeter tires in there, or you could probably get some Mezcal 2.1 mountain bike tires on that. So I really like the Redwood in terms of it's also an adventure bike. You could also use it as a touring bike, especially if you set it with a 700C. The seat post is 31.6 millis. So if you were used to like a mountain bike style seat post, it could fit that. You could put a dropper post on it. It comes with a similar Advent X 38 crank up front, 1148 cassette in the back, but an Advent X rear derailleur and shifters. The X has an updated shifter. It has the microshift sword, but it still has the Advent X in the back. Both of the Redwood and the X come in a drop bar and a flat bar configuration, so it gives you those options if you're someone who's not quite used to riding with the drops. I got the flat bar configuration because it had been many years. I got the flat bar X because it had been many years since I had ridden with I'd ridden drop bars for many years, and I just like flat bars. And if you've watched a bunch of my videos, you can see that I put the alternative, I put an alt handlebars on it, which just really comfortable bike for me. So the Redwood is a through axle. There's no quick release option. It's through axle. So if that was something that interested you, that's something to think about. So this is the most adventurous, I'd say the most rugged of the bikes. It comes in at the heaviest at 28.6 pounds in the medium size. The size range from the Redwood is also a little bit different, extra small to XL. It's also a great choice bike for commuting, packing, touring. If I was touring on the road, I'd probably go with the X. It also has a bunch of holes so you can put in racks on the fork. You can put a bike rack on the back. Yeah, that is an excellent option for those reasons. And then we have the Triton, which I would say is the most sporty of the bikes. It's the most aggressive in its geometry. It's pretty much a road bike that you can turn into a gravel bike. So if you wanted a bike to keep up with, road bike group rides, because it has a 2x10, 20-speed microshift sword with a massive gear range, I would say like 50-34 for the crankset, and then the cassette is an 11-38 teeth, which is just insane in terms of being able to get up hills, and because of the geometry, it's just really good at going up hills. And a lot of the times when you get bikes that have a geometry that's so aggressive, they kind of can be unstable going downhill, but I just feel like the way that the bike is configured, the shorter chainstays make it super fast, but also it just has stability. Like when I looked at the diagram of it, I thought this is going to be iffy if it can go downhill really fast, but it's really stable at descending. And I have a Fasari Schaefer, and that is my most rugged gravel bike that I have in terms of the one that I use. My partner uses the Redwood. So that is the most stable bike I've ever had going downhill. And because of its 45 millimeter tires, that makes it just an awesome bike going downhill. But surprisingly enough, with its 32 millimeter tires, the Triton is very good at descending. And it has the ability to put 40 up front of the millimeter and 37 in the back. So I would say for most people, what I've realized for most people who are doing like a mixed surface, they're doing a little bit of gravel and they're doing a little bit of road. Most of us probably do more road riding than we do gravel riding, because even if we're doing gravel, we have to ride, at least for me, I have to ride a significant amount of pavement before I get to the dirt. So I would almost say, in some ways, I would say if you're like gravel curious, but you still want a fast bike, I'd say this is probably the best of all the worlds in terms of this will go fast with your group rides. You can use it for cyclocross. If you were doing any sportifs like triathlons or just racing any, and you wanted just a bike to get yourself into that scene, I'd say this one is the best one of them all. And really, from my experience, 37 millimeters in the rear, you could probably push it to 38. But I would say like a 38 millimeter tire for gravel riding, for most of what most people is going to use, is plenty. Now, I'm not going to lie, like if I could go to 50 millimeters, I would love it, because on the Fazari, I can do 45 millimeters up to 50, and I ride with 45s, and I love it. I'm a huge fan of the widest tires you can possibly fit on your bike. But that being said, 38 millimeters is still pretty burly, especially for a road bike style. And with the speed that you get with the Triton, it would make a really great gravel bike. And its ability to go downhill and descents is pretty awesome. Now, one of the things that I think that I really like about Poseidon over the years, from a lot of feedback that they get, I really feel they listen to feedback of people who make social media about them. And so one of the things they've done on the Triton that I have not upgraded is their braking system. I think the compressionless housing with the mechanical shifting, the braking is excellent. Is it the same as my hydraulic braking system? To be honest, maybe it's because I don't ride the Triton as aggressively, but for road riding, they're plenty. Like, I've not had any problem. And again, because I live in a hilly area, I would say one of the things that I'm concerned with for braking is like those steep downhills. When you're going uphill, you're going to come downhill. I've had no problems. I did have the mechanical brakes with the Poseidon X, and they did not have compressionless housing, and I was not cool with those brakes. I did not appreciate those brakes, and just being honest. But as it turns out, I went on AliExpress and I was able to get a pretty cheap pair of, I got a whole set of M200s with the levers, with the calipers, with all the housing and hosing for about $50. So I'm not one to do my own mechanical work, because I'm just not that savvy. I don't have space. I have a toddler at home. It's just not feasible. So, I had to pay a mechanic to get those brakes run through my bike. But it was still worth it, because ultimately when I was looking at the Jaguar compressionless housing, it was about $60 for just the housing. So it was cheaper to get the whole braking system from AliExpress than to get Jaguar compressionless housing. So that is a significant upgrade that they're giving you on the bikes, to give you that, knowing that when you try to buy aftermarket, it can be that expensive. It's a really great deal to put on their bikes, and I'm really stoked that they're putting it on their bikes, because it's almost, you could look at it as like, hey, let's just get some brakes onto a bike just to be good enough. But I feel like Poseidon has gone above and beyond and said, no, let's actually, for the price you're paying, give you some really, really decent braking that you would not have to upgrade. And I appreciate the improvements in the saddle that they have provided for their bikes. The Triton comes with a saddle that I don't need to upgrade at all, whereas the X and the Redwood at the time, I did upgrade them. The saddles, I didn't appreciate those. But because the bike was such a budget bike, it's like it gives you room to like upgrade and customize and make your own, thus the name of my channel, My Bike Build. It really gives you that opportunity to make it yours. And so that's pretty much my breakdown of all three of the bikes. If you're someone who likes getting around town and you need to run errands, but you still want something that's fast, I would go with the Poseidon X. If you want something that's the most sporty of them all, I would go with the Triton. And if you want something that's the most rugged and closest to a mountain bike, I would go with the Redwood. That being said, it's, one person asked me about my Fazari and, talking about speed and is that a fast bike? And the Fazari is a fast bike, but ultimately, the Poseidon X is also a really fast bike too. It's just that I've configured it in such a upright position, and I've configured it way more for comfort than I have for speed. But even that being said, I still feel it's a pretty fast bike. And so if you took the X frame, those are on sale for like $299 right now, which is an insane deal for a through axle frame set. You could really turn that into a really, really fast bike that gets you around town really in a really speedy fashion if that's what you wanted, but still more relaxed. And so ultimately, I think that my preference as a cyclist is to be in the most upright position that you can give me. And so that Poseidon X is a tremendously comfortable bike, especially the way I've configured. And if you see my channel, what I did is I took the upgraded fork and I didn't cut it at all. I just put spacers on it and left the fork as it is and put my alt bars on it, and I love it. And I would never change that ride height because, you know, I might if it was my only bike, but because I have other bikes that are more aggressive, it's just an incredible sitting position for me. And I feel like that adds to my ability to ride it for a very long time because it's just so comfortable. Whereas the Triton is a more aggressive position. And quite frankly, it's a position that I've had to get used to more over time because it's not a position that I particularly love. And it's not, I haven't had a lot of bikes with positions that are that aggressive, but compared to regular road bikes, it's not super slammed. It's, you know, it really isn't. So if you're used to road bikes, the Triton is a really good one. Now, that one doesn't have any spaces to put a bike rack, any holes, but nowadays there are so many modern bike racks and stuff that you could get a rack on there if you wanted, but I definitely like the option of having bikes that are just purely for sport. And so I feel like luckily because of being able to work with Poseidon, I was able to use that Triton just for sportifs, just to go ride around the town, get my endurance rides on. You know, I can go a further distance in a shorter amount of time. So if you're really trying to get your workout on and you're really concerned with fitness, I'd say that would be the best bike in terms of the way it's configured out of the box. But you could configure a Poseidon X if you just got the frame set and put a 2x on it and put the similar drivetrain in it. You could get similar performance out of it. Not exactly the same, but you could get pretty close with a more relaxed position. So that's my 2 cents on all of those bikes. And hopefully you go check out their company because I don't make anything off promoting them. It's just I feel, you know, because I actually enjoy these bikes and I feel it's a great deal, and because of being able to work with them in terms of getting a bike for them for the videos I make, I feel, you know, compelled to spread the word. You know, even though I won't make any extra money or anything like that, I don't make any deals. I'm not affiliated with them in any official capacity, but the customer service at that company is amazing. Lewis is I mean, at least from email exchanges and everything, just seems like a super cool guy. When I bought my first bike, I paid too much for it. They're always having deals on the site, and I paid too much for it. I explained that to him. He's like, yeah, no problem. Canceled my order. And he said, hey, whenever you're ready, reorder the bike. And that made me kind of fall in love with that company. And what I realized is that, you know, I get super curious about buying frames and everything from AliExpress because some frames look super cool and I really want to get them. But I would advise, if you are watching this from America, it's a really good idea to get a bike from the country that you're in. Not because I would say any one country makes bikes better. I mean, I feel like all of these bike frames are ultimately made in Taiwan, the vast majority of them anyway, in China. But it's the customer service. If something goes wrong with your frame, something's off, you get that lifetime warranty and you can call someone locally. So if you're in the US, I would advise that. If you're overseas, I'm sure maybe that might change the situation for you. But ultimately, you know, if you're watching as an American viewer, I think 50% of the people who watch my videos are from the States, like me. I would say it's always a great idea to get a frame or a bike or a whole bike build from the country that you're from, just because if something does go wrong, the customer service, the time difference of when you get to talk to these people, luckily I'm on the same coast as them, so I have the same time zone as them, so that's why it's my particular preference. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. If you have any issues or you have any questions, get in the comment section, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, my lovers.